With more than 1,000 tuna longline fishing vessels in the major oceans of the world, Taiwan's tuna longline fishery has been well developed. Among the fleet, there are 614 large-scale tuna longline vessels, which account for 42% of the 1,454 large-scale tuna longline vessels in the world. With a peak catch level of over 200,000 tons, Taiwan has become one of the world's largest tuna longline fishing nations in the world. In 2005, Taiwan reached cooperation in tuna fishing with 26 coastal nations. Some 73 foreign ports around the world have been developed to serve as base ports for transshipment and landing of catch, replenishment of supplies, and maintenance of vessels. Growth in the global economy, together with the growing demand for high-quality protein, has motivated the continued increase in tuna catch. Tuna is a fish species of high value. Three major species, namely big eye, albacore, and yellowfin, are targeted by coastal and far seas fisheries worldwide. Recent expansion of far seas tuna fisheries around the world has pushed some tuna stocks to the stage of full exploitation. In some oceans, the resources of albacore and yellowfin tuna are now at the stage of full exploitation or nearing full exploitation. Notably, the global resources of big eye tuna has a sign of overfishing. This has caused concern among international fisheries management organizations and ecologists, urging states and regional fisheries management organizations to manage big eye stocks and to restrain the harvest of the stock by means of limitation of catch levels or fishing efforts. In light of the risk of depletion of the big eye stock, there was a common understanding among states of the importance of reinforcing the conservation of tuna stocks in the high sea. This was reflected in the adoption in August 1995 of the Agreement for the Implementation of the Provision of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea of December 10, 1982, relating to the conservation and management of straddling fish stocks and highly migratory fish stocks, which requires states to cooperate through regional bodies to manage and conserve highly migratory fish stocks to ensure their sustainable utilization. In addition, in 1999, the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, of the United Nations adopted the International Plan of Action for the Management of Fishing Capacity, calling on states to limit their fishing capacity, reducing their large-scale longline fleets by 20%. The 2002 World Summit on Sustainable Development further called for greater efforts to enable marine resources, including tuna, to restore their levels of maximum sustainable yield by 2015. To promote conservation of tuna resources and to ensure the sustainable development of tuna fisheries, regional tuna management organizations have been established worldwide. They include the ICCAT in the Atlantic, the IATTC in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, the WCPFC in the Central and Western Pacific, the IOTC in the Indian Ocean, and the CCSBT for the conservation of southern bluefin tuna, whose migration ranges across 3 oceans. For the purpose of conservation and sustainable utilization of tuna resources, appropriate measures on catch limits have been adopted by these regional organizations, requiring states fishing for the stocks to comply. As one of the major players in far seas tuna longline fishery, Taiwan is fully aware of and recognizes its responsibilities and obligations in the conservation of tuna resources and has exerted its greatest efforts in the work of international fishery conservation and management. In addition to the establishment of domestic management regulations and mechanisms, in line with the resolutions adopted by the regional fisheries management organizations in 2005, Taiwan has also implemented a fleet size reduction program, which includes a reduction of large-scale tuna longline vessels to mitigate the crises of depletion of global tuna fishing resources, while upgrading the structure of the industry in such a way that it will act according with the trend of international fisheries management. In the fleet size reduction program, Taiwan will cut its fleet by 160 large-scale tuna longline vessels between 2005 and 2006, a reduction of more than 26% of its current fleet size. This reduction will help to resolve the problem of Taiwan's insufficient fishing quotas for big-eye tuna and to ensure that all vessels fishing for big-eye tuna can be operated under a reasonable accessible quota for big-eye tuna, such that fishing operations can comply with international regulations, thereby reaching the goal of sustainable utilization of tuna resources. In order to ensure the transparency of fleet reduction, in February 2005, the Taiwan government announced an operational procedure on fleet reduction. In 2005, 59 large-scale tuna longline vessels would be reduced, among which 15 vessels were from the Pacific, 24 vessels from the Indian Ocean, and 20 vessels from the Atlantic. These vessels were required to stop fishing on the 30th of June 2005 and return to their home ports in accordance with the required time frame. On their return to their home port, pending their scrapping, they were required to berth at designated docks, and their identity was checked and confirmed by the Taiwan Tuna Association and other relevant agencies. Scrapping of the vessels was made under the supervision of personnel from the Taiwan Tuna Association and other relevant agencies, in accordance with the required scrapping procedure. The first phase of the fleet reduction is scheduled for completion by the first half of 2006. The second phase is to be carried out in 2006. Vessels to be scrapped are expected to focus on vessels fishing in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. It is planned that the entire scraping program of 160 large-scale tuna longline vessels will be completed at the end of 2006. As a matter of fact, as early as 1991, Taiwan conducted fishing fleet reduction programs in response to the call for international conservation and the management of tuna resources. Over the last 14 years, between 1991 and 2005, Taiwan adopted the policy of limited fishing entry and implemented a number of vessel buyback programs, whereby a total of 2,751 vessels of various size were bought back by the government, resulting in a reduction of 138,698 gross tonnage in capacity, among which 136 vessels were large-scale tuna longline vessels. In addition, to reduce the number of vessels owned by Taiwan nationals under flags of convenience, in 2000, under a joint action plan with Japan, Taiwan committed to facilitate those vessels built in Taiwan to be registered in Taiwan by amending its regulations. 48 large-scale tuna longline vessels completed their registration in Taiwan. At the same time, Taiwan has reduced its 48 tuna longline vessels in its own registry, and from the viewpoint of global vessel reduction, such a process could be interpreted as a worldwide reduction of tuna longline vessels by 48 vessels. In view of the poor status of the stock of big-eye tuna and to enable rational operations of the tuna fishing industry, the plan on reduction of fishing fleet for rational fishing operation has been prioritized. Under a 2-year plan, Taiwan aims to scrap 160 large-scale tuna longline vessels that target big-eye tuna. The biggest difference between the past and the current reduction in fishing fleet is that the vessels subject to scrapping are the large-scale tuna longline vessels, and they are currently in operation. According to the Fisheries Act, the Taiwan government has offered compensation to ship owners, which can be considered as preferential. The total compensation amounts to 70,000 NT per vessel tonnage, of which the government provides 30,000 per vessel ton and the industry provides the remaining 40,000 per vessel ton. The 2-year plan will cost a total of 6.3 billion NT dollars, which is the equivalent of 191 million US dollars. The dedicated efforts put into this plan by the government have won the support of those ship owners who decided to leave the fishery, as well as those who wish to remain in the fishery. The fleet reduction of Taiwan's large-scale tuna longline fishery is ongoing and expected to be completed by the end of 2006, by which time the targets of scrapping 160 vessels will be achieved, demonstrating a firm step forward in fulfilling Taiwan's international conservation obligations. To ensure Taiwan tuna longline fleet size is commensurate with the catch quotas allocated by the relevant regional fisheries management organizations, in addition to reduction of fishing efforts by downsizing its large-scale tuna longline fleet, the Taiwan government has taken measures to prevent operators from conducting such illegal activities as fish laundering in order to rebuild the image of Taiwan tuna fishery. These actions include: first, grouping of fishing vessels by fishing areas and target species. Vessels of a specific species group are only permitted to fish in a specific fishing area, and they are not allowed to fish in other areas without prior permission from the competent authority. Second, enhancement in the control of catch. Increase in the frequency of catch reporting through Vessel Monitoring System (VMS) and weekly reporting to monitoring the fishing activities and the utilization of fishing quotas allocated to the individual vessels. When vessels exhaust their quota, they will be required to return to a designated port. In 2006, any vessel fishing for big-eye tuna in the Atlantic is required to have a compliance observer on board to ensure that the vessel complies with the conservation and management measures adopted by ICCAT. Third, to strengthen the collection of catch information, the coverage of scientific observers and port sampling will be increased. Fourth, strict control of the issuing of catch statistical documents. Information such as individual quota allocation to each vessel, weekly catch reporting, VMS records, export records of catch, and transshipment records to verify the quantity of the catch and issuing of the catch statistical documents. Fifth, to take effective measures to combat IUU fishing activities, regulations for investigating flag of convenience fishing vessels owned by Taiwan nationals or IUU fishing activities conducted by Taiwan nationals will be drafted, and severe punishment will be imposed on offenders accordingly. Regulations have been promulgated permitting the construction of foreign flag fishing vessels only to replace sunk or lost vessels as declared by the importing state to prevent the construction of flag of convenience vessels in Taiwan. Cooperation with those states where Taiwan nationals have operated vessels under their flag will be strengthened, and assistance will be provided to such countries in the capacity building in fisheries management. Sixth, the management of small and medium-scale tuna longline vessels of less than 24 meters in length will be strengthened. Seventh, heavier punishment for fisheries violations will be imposed. Any vessel carrying fish caught by another vessel without authorization or involvement in IUU fishing activities, the license of the vessel will be revoked. The Taiwan government realizes that it must effectively manage its large fleet operating on the high seas by means of strict control and verification of catch in order to comply with the conservation and management measures adopted by the international fishery organizations. The government of Taiwan is determined to prove to the international community its commitment as a responsible fishery state. Although the urgent industry adjustments in such a short period of time are overburdening both the government and industry, Taiwan is willing to take these steps to conserve the tuna resources to achieve the objective of conservation of tuna resources and sustainable fisheries operation. Both the government and the fishing industry have recognized that this is the correct choice, and it is the direction that Taiwan should persist in pursuing. Sustainable utilization of tuna resources is a goal sought by the international community. Taiwan looks forward to cooperating with all members of the international community to deter and eliminate IUU fishing activities. The Taiwan government and its tuna fishing industry will sustain their obligations and duties in conserving fisheries stock in a responsible manner, thus rebuilding their image on the far seas tuna longline fishery.